No intro for this, we're starting with 2010, and if you're not a complete idiot, you would have seen that I put Shawn and Taker as the thumbnail for this video, and that's what we're gonna go with for 2010. And if we're being completely honest here, 2010 was such an uneventful year that this was a no-brainer, and it's not even close. Shawn and Taker's match at WrestleMania 25 was so phenomenal that their feud heading into WrestleMania 26 literally wrote itself. The build was so fun and dramatic. It was literally a front row seat to Shawn Michaels crashing the fuck out. First at the Slammy Awards, calling out Taker, then after losing the Rumble, realizing he wouldn't be wrestling Taker. He'd even lose the tag team titles to Show Miz, and that right there just has to be the last straw. Shawn's life was taking a dark turn, so in an act of desperation at the Elimination Chamber, he would creep up on Taker from underneath the ring and hit him with a sweet chin music to cost him the chamber match and, most importantly, the World Heavyweight title. This, however, was Undertaker's breaking point, and he basically said, fuck it, we're fighting at Mania. If I lose, you win the streak, but if I beat you, your career is over. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was how Shawn Michaels retired from in-ring competition until this, of course, but we're not going to talk about that. This was a classic feud, though, and the rematch at Mania also delivered. I still prefer their match at Mania 25 just a little more, but they're both classics in their own right. You guys let me know in the comments which match you preferred out of the two. 2011 was a bit better. Now we have some room to play with. Some of the most notable feuds, in my opinion, were definitely Christian versus Randy Orton, which felt like it lasted the whole goddamn year. Not saying it was bad, but damn, they milked the hell out of that one. John Cena and The Miz was pretty entertaining too, but I gotta give this one to CM Punk and John Cena. Like, come on guys, you saw this coming a mile away. 2011 was another weird-ass year. It started off pretty bad, but towards the summer when CM Punk famously dropped his pipe bomb promo, shit picked up fast, and this actually turned into CM Punk versus the entire WWE, not just John Cena. This man was beefing with Triple H, Vince McMahon, Kevin Nash, Del Rio, and honestly more guys. But I think his match and the build-up to Money in the Bank with John Cena was the best and really defined this whole year if you think about it. If it weren't for CM Punk, we wouldn't have much to talk about when it came to the entire year of 2011. 2012, on the other hand, was a bit tricky, I'm not gonna lie, because there was a lot of good feuds this year. The obvious ones are Cena and Rock, which had been building for like a whole year already. The build-up to Triple H and Taker was also really entertaining, but it didn't last long enough. Taker would kind of just show up for a few months, come Mania, and then he would dip again. CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan was another honorable mention. I remember loving this feud as a kid, especially when they started bringing AJ Lee into it. This was some really well executed drama and made for some entertaining television, but the rivalry I ultimately decided on is Brock Lesnar versus John Cena. Don't forget, this is just my personal opinion, but I think the reason this one sticks out to me is because I was 7 or 8 years old at the time, and I remember when Brock Lesnar returned and he F5'd my favorite superstar at the time, John Cena. This wasn't even the worst part though. The following week, John Cena would interrupt Lesnar, and I was so happy. In my head, I was like, we're good. John Cena's about to come out here and get his leg back from last week because Lesnar just caught him off guard. But hell no, Brock Lesnar completely whooped this man's ass, leaving him all bloody from his mouth. And for the first time in his career, John Cena actually looked kind of weak. And I really wanted to see him win at Extreme Rules, which he did. But yeah, man, this was crazy. Lesnar and Cena did really good at selling that brawl, and I love how the entire locker room came out from backstage for this. They don't do them like they used to. You can see why this was so exciting as a kid. I just wanted to see John Cena beat the living hell out of Brock Lesnar. For 2013, I didn't really have a hard time picking a rivalry. A very underrated one, however, was John Cena versus Mark Henry. Whenever Mark Henry completely fooled everybody with his fake retirement. There was also Twice in a Lifetime, but nah. Although Rock versus Punk was decent, I decided on Punk versus Taker, which was a very fun feud and had a perfect build. Paul Bearer, whose real name was William Moody, had died in real life around this time, so one week on Raw, Kane and Undertaker were honoring his legacy when suddenly CM Punk would grab the new urn with his ashes in it and proceed to beat the hell out of Kane with it. He'd steal the urn, and for the next couple of weeks, he was being a complete menace, just torturing the Undertaker with the urn, dropping it on the ground carelessly, playing catch with it, and making it talk in a Paul Bearer voice. The very end of the build was even crazier, though, as Paul Heyman would come out disguised as Paul Bearer, and he would say his infamous catchphrase, prompting Taker to go up the ramp and kick his ass, obviously. But CM Punk was disguised as one of Taker's nuns, I guess, and would blindside inside him and then proceed to dump Paul Bear's ashes all over him. God damn, CM Punk was evil back then. This was a very entertaining rivalry, and I just had to choose it as I really love the match at Mania as well. And if you guys haven't seen that match, you must check it out. I think it's highly underrated. 2014 was a pretty chaotic year, I'm not gonna lie. There was a lot of feuds going on. The most notable ones, obviously, are Shield versus Wyatt family, Lesnar versus Cena again, but it was actually pretty good. There was Shield versus Evolution, Taker Lesnar, but come on, you guys. Could it not be more obvious? There's just not another rivalry this year that can hold a torch to this one. It felt like the whole world was behind Daniel Bryan as he was over as hell. Arguably the most over wrestler of all time. I don't think anyone has ever gotten over quite like 2014 Daniel Bryan did. This shit was actually kind of crazy. But yeah, 2014 goes to Daniel Bryan versus Triple H. No need to say more. You know exactly how this went down. 2015, however, took a little more thinking, but not too much. This year was so horrific, by the way. At least we got some good matches out of it, but that's about it. The rivalries this year weren't even that good. The main ones being Rollins versus Ambrose, Taker versus Lesnar, Sting versus Triple H. But I'm going with Kevin Owens versus John Cena for this one. Rollins versus John Cena was also good, but I like Owens versus Cena just slightly more, and it's strictly due to the wrestling. These guys had awesome chemistry and awesome matches that it carried their entire rivalry. You didn't need to see a lot of drama every week, as the wrestling itself was the drama. These guys had 3 matches with each other. The first one at Elimination Chamber, which Kevin Owens would shock the world by pinning Cena clean, bringing the score to 1-0. Then they'd have a rematch at Money in the Bank, which I was actually in attendance for, and I also believe this was the best match of their series. John Cena would win that one, making it 1-1, and they'd have a final blow-off match at Battleground, which Cena would win. But despite losing the feud, Kevin Owens still looked really strong and proved that he could hang with the top dogs on the main roster. All 3 matches were exceptional, making this, in my opinion, the best rivalry that year. 2016 was truly stacked, though, and there was some good feuds this year. 2016 is often regarded as one of the best years for WWE in recent times, that is. The brand split returned, the Cruiserweight division was also back, and the rivalries this year were also solid. You had Shane versus Taker, Lesnar versus Goldberg, Charlotte versus Sasha Banks, and even on NXT you had Samoa Joe versus Finn Balor. Dolph Ziggler versus The Miz was another honorable mention, as I love that feud. There was just so much effort and detail put into that they even brought the Spirit Squad back for a few weeks. Not to mention the matches between these two were also great. I almost chose them, but I'm going with AJ Styles and John Cena, who lit up 2016 with their feud. People were already anticipating it the minute AJ debuted, and it happened almost instantly, with AJ constantly wanting to prove to Cena that he was simply better than him. It was just so fun, and as a new AJ Styles fan, seeing him, Luke Gallows, and Carl Anderson beat up John Cena every week was hilarious. Their first match was at Money in the Bank, and it was really good. I vividly remember John Cena calling out spots loud as hell during this match, though. AJ Styles would win with help from the club, and honestly, I have no real complaints for this match. Well, they somehow managed to top it off at SummerSlam 2016, and that match still remains one of my favorites to this day. A lot of people say Rumble 2017 was better, and if you're one of those people, you need to please shut the hell up. This is the superior match. Overall, though, great promo and in-ring work from these guys. AJ Styles would go on to be 2-0 against John Cena. Their feud would carry on throughout the entire year, as the SmackDown title picture in 2016 mainly consisted of AJ Styles, Dean Ambrose, and John Cena. Unlike 2016, though, 2017 was straight ass, and I hated it. This is when WWE started to fall off the deep end. The first half of the 2010s was tolerable, but from 2017 forward, it was diabolical. Somehow, though, 2017 had a fuck ton of crazy feuds. Like, seriously, listen to this list. Brock Lesnar versus Samoa Joe, Roman Reigns versus Braun Strowman, Kevin Owens versus Chris Jericho, Bray Wyatt versus Orton, John Cena versus Roman Reigns, and a couple more. But the one we're going with today is a bit of a curveball, I'm not gonna lie. We're going with the New Day versus the Usos. This rivalry was just so much fun. Where do I even begin? So the New Day get drafted to SmackDown as part of the Superstar shakeup, and people were instantly wanting to see this match. Yes, we had seen it before, but this was a way more established New Day, and the Usos had just turned heel, and they were on a tear on SmackDown. It is rare that people actually care about a tag team feud, but both of these teams at the time were so over and constantly having great matches that WWE took advantage of both teams' momentum, and they managed to put together arguably the best tag team rivalry of all time. They would have a ton of matches, but they somehow managed to make them all different. New Day's ability to rotate partners played a big part in that. They'd have matches at Battleground, Money in the Bank, SummerSlam, Fastlane, and a couple on SmackDown. The standout one obviously being the classic they put on at Hell in a Cell 2017. And we need to start talking about this match again because it was really good. They play hot potato with the tag team titles, and they would change hands a total of 4 times during their feud. But this is a rare instance where hot potato is actually necessary to make both teams look strong and keep a storyline interesting. The promos and segments between these guys were also really good, and I'd make the argument that this is the best promo work we've ever seen from both tag teams, mainly the Usos, who were getting really comfortable on the mic around this time and delivering some heartfelt promos. The highlight of this rivalry for me, though, is that infamous rap battle they had on SmackDown. They were already spitting some heat from the jump, but we all know that Jimmy Uso line that made us all spit out our water. It went something like Big E, let's just keep it PG, something, Xavier Woods. I'm not going to say it, but you know exactly what I'm talking about, you nasty boys. Moving on now, we're at 2018, and this year sucked. Like really bad. This is when I started tuning out and not watching the shows weekly anymore because there was quite literally nothing going on. I was still keeping up with the product through YouTube and stuff and catching the big pay-per-views like Mania and SummerSlam, but I just couldn't sit through a weekly episode around this time. It was truly horrific, and I honestly just want to skip over this entire year because when I look back at these rivalries, I'm going to be completely honest. I kind of just had to force myself to pick one. I mean, Randy versus Jeff was solid. So was AJ versus Nakamura. As far as the storyline went, the match itself, I'm just going to go with Samoa Joe versus AJ, as I remember it being one of the only few rivalries I actually enjoyed back then. It started to get pretty personal when Samoa Joe started bringing AJ's wife and kids into it. I remember him saying shit like, Wendy, who's AJ's wife, I'm coming to tuck the kids in, or Daddy's coming home, shit along those lines. This feud was good and got intense, but besides that, I don't have much else to say about it. By now, I was completely burnt out on the product, and I wouldn't get back into watching weekly until after COVID or so. I took a solid 2-year tolerance break, still keeping up, of course, but definitely not sitting through a 3-hour uneventful Raw or a 2-hour SmackDown snooze fest. Finally, we have reached 2019, the end of the video, and I'm going to keep it a buck with you guys. I had a ton of fun making it until we got to the years 2018 and 19, as this instantly brought back terrible memories, the trauma I had with the company, and I totally understand why I quit watching around this time. There was really only one correct rivalry to choose for this year, and that is Kofi Kingston versus Daniel Bryan, with Daniel Bryan's underdog story coming full circle, this time with him as the bully and the hungry challenger in Kofi Kingston. This was the only feud that year which really enticed me. It was literally just the Daniel Bryan 2014 storyline all over again. Kofi would lose the Elimination Chamber match for the WWE title, and the fans were disappointed and began protesting immediately against the company, with hashtag KofiMania going viral. Their wishes would eventually be granted at WrestleMania 35 when Kofi would win the WWE Championship, making for a very emotional moment for Kofi and us fans who have been watching him since his debut. And one thing everyone can agree on is that this was very well deserved and honestly one of the most heartfelt title victories in WWE's history. With that being said, guys, I think this is the perfect time to end the video as we've gone through the entire decade of 2010. I'm really curious to see what you guys' lists look like in the comments down below. Or if you change a rivalry I selected for a certain year, please let me know all that in the comments down below as I read every single one. Also, don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. It literally takes a second and it helps me out tremendously. As well as don't forget to subscribe if you want to keep watching the most authentic wrestling content on YouTube. I love you guys, and I'll be catching y'all on the next banger.